All right, welcome to the tutorial portion of this video. We're going to be covering I'll Wait from Kygo. It's a very beautiful song, I'm sure you'll agree. And we'll talk about the music theory behind it, which is a lot of fun. Kind of talk about how you can incorporate this into your own songs as well. So let's get right into it. So the song is in D flat major. Beautiful key, right? So this, as you can see, I'm playing a lot of black notes. And that's because this key of D flat actually contains 5 flats. So if you play the D flat major scale, you see here we have all 5 flats being played, right? As opposed to a key like C major, which is a very neutral key because the C major scale has 0 black keys. So just so you know, it's a very colorful sound because of the number of flats that are being used here. So that's the first thing we need to know. Then let's talk about the chord progression a little bit. So we have a very classic chord progression, actually, 6, 4, 1, 5, which sounds something like this. So one more time. Now, one of the reasons I love this chord progression is because of the placement of the 1 chord. So the 1 chord is essentially the first chord of the scale, built on the first degree of the scale. So if we're in the key of D flat, then the 1 chord is D flat major, because we're in the key of D flat major, right? Whereas the 4 chord, for example, would be based on the 4th note of the scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we would have a G flat major triad, just like that. So the 1 chord, as you may know, it serves the function of bringing us home, and it makes us feel very comfortable and resolved. So anytime we hit the 1 chord, we feel, okay, this section is finished, or we feel like, okay, we've resolved, and it sounds very comfortable. So a lot of the time, when you want to be predictable, you actually place the 1 chord in the first position. In typical chord progressions in pop music, they're usually comprised of 3 or 4 chords. So this is one of those songs where it's 4 chords long, at least in the verses, and the structure is 6, 4, 1, 5. So the 1 chord is actually in the 3rd position, which is very cool. So we start off in the 6th chord, B flat minor, which is a very, sad sounding chord because it's a minor chord. So B flat minor, and you can voice this however you like. If you're playing the melody in the right hand, then you'll probably be playing at the most basic form a triad in the right hand. So you could do something like kind of like that, So I'm playing the B flat minor in my left hand, and my right hand is playing the melody. So D flat, C, B flat, A flat, and then F. And notice I'm playing that in one hand position, so I don't even need to move my hand very much. Right? So 6th chord is the first one. Then the next one, we go to a major chord, which is the 4 chord. So G flat major. So at its most basic form, it's G flat, B flat, and D flat. Okay, then we get the 1 chord. So that's the D flat major chord right there, which is really nice. And then we go from 1 to 5. Okay, now what this does is when we end with a 5 chord, it leaves a very open-ended sound. So we get this element of tension. So the reason 5 works so well at the end of a progression is because it's basically the furthest away you can get from the 1 chord. So the 1 chord is here. And if you go up to the 5 chord, that's pretty much as far away from 1 as you can get. Now you might say, well, how about 6 and 7? Well, if you look at the upper tonic, the 6 is actually pretty close to the 1, and so is the 7, right? So the 5 is pretty much as far away as you can get, both from the lower tonic and the upper tonic. So we call the 5 chord a dominant chord, and the 1 chord is called the tonic chord. So the tonic chord to the dominant chord, and if we just end here, it sounds very open-ended, like we need to go somewhere else. And so what do we get after this? Well, this chord progression actually repeats again. So we actually get from 5 back to 6. In classical terms, we call this a deceptive cadence. So usually you would expect something like 5 to 1. So that gets very resolved, right? Like tension, release. But in this case, we get tension to you know, it's still release, but it's not quite as strong as the 1 chord. So we get the 6 chord, the 4 chord, G flat major, D flat major, which is the 1 chord, and then the 5 chord, which is A flat major. So this chord progression happens throughout the verses, okay? And the melody is quite simple. So it goes do 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 do, D flat C, B flat, A flat, F. And now we get the same thing on the 4 chord, except instead of landing on the F, we actually land on the G flat. There. So you see how on this keyboard it shows up as F sharp, but in the key of D flat major it's actually G flat. So and then it resolves down to the F. So da 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 F, G flat, F, E flat, and I'm using as little hand movement as possible. Okay. So that's the verses, and then the pre-chorus uses the exact same chord progression, and the melody is even simpler. So the chord progression is 6, 4, 1, 5, and the melody is actually like this. So we play B flat a few times. Dun, 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 dun. I think it goes dun, 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 dun. So B flat, C, B flat, and then same thing again. And then it goes to A flat. So it goes A flat, G flat, F, resolves to the F, and then A flat again to B flat, back to A flat, and then A flat, go down to G flat, to F, to E flat. And it lands on E flat because E flat's actually one of the notes of the 5 chord, which is A flat major. So it matches very well. It matches the chord perfectly. So we get this. Right? And there you go. Now for the chorus, the chord progression is actually the same as the verse. However, you get some extra chords added onto it as well. So let's go over the chord progression really quickly. So we get B flat major, G flat, D flat, 5 chord, and up to this point it's all the same. Now we add a couple extra ones. Back to the 6 chord, to the 4 chord, and then the 5 chord. Now the reason why we have these 3 extra chords is because the rhythm at which the chords play in the chorus is quicker. So you need more chords to fill up the phrase, basically. So you get dun 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 dun, and you see we ended this phrase again on the 5. So then we're wondering, where are we going to go after the 5? Are we going to go back to the 1 for resolution, or are we going back to the 6? Well, we actually go back to the 6. So dun 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 dun. And this second time, we actually land on the 1 chord instead of going to the 5. So the end of the first phrase, we went from 4 to 5. And at the end of the second phrase, we go from 4 to 1. So this is called a plagal cadence. It's also very resolved. Okay? And then the melody goes something like this. So watch very closely. I'm not going to name each note as I play it, but you can just watch me play it here. So. Okay, rewind that a few times if you need to, but that's basically how that melody goes. So it goes something like this. So the chord progression for the drop is really cool. So we get this chord progression of 6, dun, 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 dun. We get this B flat minor to G flat to D flat, very classic, 6 4 1, repeated 3 times. So it goes 2 3 4 1 2 3, and again 1 2 3 4 1 2, and again 2 3 4 1 2 3. Now finally, for the last time, we start on the G flat major. We go to B flat major, so 4 to 6, and then 5, and then to 1. So the end of the drop features a nice perfect cadence, and this is the resolution we've always been waiting for. So the classic 5 to 1, 5 to the 1. And then right after this, you go back into the verse. Okay, so what I'll do actually is I'll write out the chords on a document, and then I'll copy those and paste those in the description so you can follow along with the chords if you like to. I'll also write down the Roman numerals so you can see, if you want to play it in a different key, you can do that by applying the Roman numerals to any key. So hopefully that helps. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. This is a beautiful song, and hopefully you learned something here. So if you're looking to play more piano and you're just starting out, or if you're an intermediate player and you feel like I want to really improve this year, and because we have more time now, so check the description box. I actually have a free resource for you. It's my 5 steps to playing with confidence. And I really believe in these 5 steps because if you master all of these 5 concepts will really provide you with a solid foundation to play anything you really want. Okay? And that's very, very important. So 5 little techniques for you to follow along. It's absolutely free. Just download it in the description below, and you can apply it to any other piece of music you play in the future. All right? So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, stay safe. Bye-bye.